Yo, what it did, y'all? Let's get right into it. So, been playing the game, getting some testing done for different runs of different types, figuring out how things feel in the early game, mid game, later on in the game, etc. And I realized that the Mines video I recently did very well very quickly, and I liked the feel of making that video, and I want to expand upon this idea further. The theory here is going to be that I want to explain to you why archetypes are so good, because we talk about these archetypes that are strong, but if we understand what makes them strong, we can predict future really strong skills, or we can apply aspects of what makes them strong to other things that might be generally weaker in terms of how they're currently being theory crafted. You'll just get to better see how I approach the game. And so in that mindset, we got to talk about bows, specifically like attack bows, and really specifically like tri-elemental bows, but also physical. We'll talk about that later. But we're really going to talk about bows here because now that I've done a bow run as well this league, it's the first bow run I've done in a couple leagues actually. I used to be a huge bow nut even before the buffs in 317 that made them absolutely dominant, and especially since 317, I played it in Arch Nemesis League, but haven't really touched it since. And getting to touch it again and then touching some other things immediately after, I've realized, oh, we need to talk about why bows are so strong, what makes them fan favorites, what makes them hard to get rid of meta-wise. And so before I get into all that, if you like these type of videos, like the video. It lets me know that you want to see more of this. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of what I'm doing here. Anyways, right into it. So the first thing we have to talk about is archetypal support value. This is going to be a common theme you're going to see across really strong archetypes in this game, is that they have supports that provide value that only they can provide. You can't get this type of value for your supports in other builds. And that's a really important part of maintaining, diversity and value as an archetype, because otherwise your value will get poached by somebody else. So first thing we have to talk about is Mirage Archer. Mirage Archer is probably the single most broken thing about bows. Quite frankly, it's not the most numerically broken thing, but there's a lot of intangibles that come with it that we'll talk a little bit more about later, but we're going to talk about some of them here. First though, the numbers. Let's just talk about the raw damage that it provides you. With its 60% less attack speed multiplier, as well as 31% less damage multiplier on it, it only comes out to 27.6% more damage, DPS between the attack speed and damage, as a support, which is actually on the low side. It's competing with Inspiration as its damage value competitor. It's lower than elemental damage on attacks, which we all know is a pretty easy support to ignore, and it's understandable. But the benefits of Mirage Archer are the fact that it auto-targets and it shoots while you move, which we're going to talk a little bit more about why that's so important, but just think about it. You could run elemental damage on attacks, or you could take a couple percent loss and get the support that's always active, the support that's shooting while you're dodging, that's shooting at things you're not quite shooting at yet, can definitely be scaled up to do enough damage, because it's only 30% less raw hit damage, so you can get the actual hit damage on that skill to just obliterate packs for you ahead of time, right? There's a lot of value in the automation of Mirage Archer. That's one. Number two, we have to talk about Mirage support. Mirage support this is the numbers feast, right? We talked about minefield support in the mine video. This is going to be very close to that, actually. It's one of the few supports in the game that even almost makes minefield look remotely balanced, quite frankly. And so barrage support, to do the math for this, we have to assume that there are other projectiles in play, because the support is actually fairly weak without additional sources of projectiles. Luckily, we know that the average bow character, right, is going to be a Deadeye with a very specific tree, which I'll talk about that in a little bit. And so we can say that there's 4 projectiles from Multi-Shot, Master Fletcher, those are both on the tree, and Endless Munitions is 2 more from Deadeye. And so that makes that your average skill, like Lightning Arrow, for example, will have 8 projectiles when supported by Barrage support. At 8 projectiles, you get a 40% more attack time penalty on the gem, which translates to about 28.6% less attack speed, alongside the 62% less damage multiplier on the gem. But remember, we're now hitting 8 times, because the lines fires all arrows sequentially, means that each individual arrow can hit the target, as opposed to normal projectile behavior in this game, which will not allow them to properly shotgun. You cannot walk really close to the target and just shoot them with the skill and hit all 8. So you need barrage support to hit all 8. And putting all of these multipliers together comes together at 2.17 times damage, or a 117% more damage support gem. Now, it's not as strong as Minefield, right? Minefield literally was over 100 at 150%. Like we're not getting that high, but 117 is still absolutely ridiculous. Trinity rarely comes out above 50 in POBs. Most other really strong supports don't come out above like 50 to 60. So Mirage support giving you 117 for some decreased quality of life is insane. And you might ask, what decreased quality of life? Well, projectiles are sequential now instead of spread, so you can't clear with it. It has to be a gem swap. And more importantly, is that it does actually increase that attack time like a lot. You will feel that difference when bossing. And then number 3, I'm not going to include math for this one because it's not really about the math. It's about the feel that makes Mana Forged Arrows so nuts, which is, well, the fact that it shoots while you're just shooting. If you're just using your lightning arrow, your LE hit, your blast ring, whatever, the skills you have on Mana Forged Arrows are just going anyways, right? So you can either opt for ballistas as like the older setups used to do, or with the addition of Mana Forged Arrows. Mana Forged Arrows puts setups within 20% or so of a totem playstyle in terms of just raw single target damage, but now it's active during your clear, it's triggering your life gain on hit, it's, you know, it's not getting killed by enemies when you try to go to place down the totems, as well as the most important thing I think the Mana Forged Arrows actually does is that it provides you with strong utility links, such as the classic 4-link Frenzy, Mana Forge, Power Charge on Crit, and Culling Strike, which now gives you a source of 3 of your Frenzy charges and your Power Charges and your Culling Strike without you having to do anything. Like you're literally just firing lightning or whatever, and bang, 3 charges, and Culling Strike, which that's worth a lot more than most things you can do with your gem sockets, quite frankly. Especially because you don't actually have to do anything additionally with your hands to get it. You have to, you know, make room for it in your build and everything, but your hands don't have to do anything about this. I'm going to continue coming back to this point. Now, the second big thing about bow characters that really highlights why they're so strong is actually the core of their tree is very, very strong. If you look at the heat map on PoE Ninja for like lightning arrow characters or Elliot Head of the Spectrum characters, you're going to notice that the tree has a very specific type of pattern to it. It always is in that lower right section of the tree. It always arcs around to a lot of the same nodes. It values a lot of the same strengths on the tree. You're going, like, you know, and there's modifications as higher investment gets along where you start to add in timeless jewels and all of this stuff. But the core of the tree is really strong, even in progression. When you don't have unique jewels to modify the tree, a lot of your damage nodes are still in the 2.8% or higher per point range, which is incredible, by the way. Most builds would kill for that to be the case, especially without having to travel absurd distances to get there. It's all very contained to the bottom right side of the tree with a little bit of additional value in places like lethality, which is just a projectile attack crit node, which both skills are all projectile attack skills. So there's a lot of value there. Plus, you have your suite of defensive nodes nearby between access to suppression, a good amount of life nodes. You honestly wish it was more, but like it's there. You've got your reservation node nearby. The tree just really like coalesces nicely. And then again, we talked about the unique jewel strength, how the lethal pride in the ranger jewel gets really ridiculous, or, you know, the strength of thread of hopes nearby and whatnot. There's a lot of value that comes in here, even the proximity to a really high value cluster jewel, access to strong masteries. This area is just really dense with power. To the point where, again, even in progression, you feel very easily starved for points, as there's just so many different things you could be taking for different types of value. Lastly, in terms of the raw value things, we have to talk about something that you actually cannot see in numbers, which is the variety of intangibles, right? We talked about like Mirage Archer and its auto targeting and the fact that it continues to shoot while you move. That's an incredibly high value quality of life thing. It just actually feels good clearing with Mirage Archer. You might think, oh, but I could do more damage if I take off Mirage Archer. Yes, but I want you to play a bow character without Mirage Archer. Even for bossing, it's very noticeable how good Mirage Archer feels, even just in the fact that it will shoot the boss for you while you are dodging. You know what I'm saying? Like, that feels good. Then you add in things like Mana Forged Arrows, whether it be for triggering actual damage skills such as Storm Rain, Blast Rain, or TS, or other things like that. Because, you know, with TS, it gets around the animation change they recently did. And so you actually still get really high value out of TS for like clear. You can see that in Havoc's 1-100 run, which was an insane run, by the way, about using TS there because it just has insane clear. You no longer have to deal with the trash animation they gave it. That type of value you provide, right? Or we can talk about the actual just range aspect of being a bow character in general. A unifying characteristic of all bow skills is that they have the option to play at range. I just have to say option because point blank is technically an option of how you scale your bow characters in terms of damage, and that means when bossing you would rather be closer. But emphasis on the word rather be closer. You still have the ability to just shoot from larger than 15 units away. And that is extremely high value because you can, kill things before they approach you. Most things in this game are terrifying in melee. Not very many things are actually that terrifying from a distance. It's just, you aren't going to get melee by stuff. Melee is a lot of fist damage usually. That tends to hurt, especially for this archetype in particular. That's one of its weak spots, getting your fizz mitigation up. But you're able to do it from range, and it means you're able to kill things before they see you. And I know that's a bit of a meme. It's like, just kill it before it kills you. But it's a really strong defensive layer. It's really strong to be able to stop something from being able to interact with you. Think like blue players in Magic the Gathering, right? That's the whole point behind their counterspelling strat is like, if I just remove your ability to have agency, you can't stop what I'm going to do. Red players go through a similar line of thinking with the ability to just crush you under raw pressure early. That's the general idea. Is removing interaction from the enemies feels just as good. And it's just the reason why we don't like it when they remove our agency, cough, cough, freeze, right? So these are all the various things that feel incredible that make it even harder to supplant bows. And so combine all of these things together, right? We've got really strong supports. We've got efficient tree pathing. We've got these defensive stats, really just quality of life stats that make playing the game feel enjoyable. And you start to really see the picture as to why everybody gravitates to bows so much. Now, if you remember though, about 2 years or so ago, bows were actually really weak, so to speak. I had been playing bows before that, and I thought they were perfectly fine, but they weren't meta at the time. They weren't what everybody was rushing to play, and it wasn't until Siege of the Atlas when we got a really wild patch note where they finally went ahead and updated the flat elemental damage rolls on bows to no longer be their own unique set of rolls, and rather use the rolls that you see on a two-handed melee weapon, such as a Despot Axe, right? And now what that means is that a spine bow and a Despot Axe get almost the same APS, or EDPS, my bad. And the difference between them is in their APS, actually. That's why I said APS there. I was thinking, like, it's the difference in their APS because bows still roll with a ranged weapon version of the attack speed, which caps out at 19% at T1, as opposed to 27% for celebration rolls on melee weapons, which can actually go even higher if you were to essence it, but we're not gonna talk, that's a little bit extra, right? But just generally speaking, the Despot Axe can still be faster, technically speaking, but the actual like EDPS is super competitive, and spine bows have incredible crit chance, right? Spine bows are a base crit of 6.5 compared to a Despot Axe's 5. Now, comparatively, if we were to still play with Fizz, however, your Despot Axe is over 40% higher PDPS. You're still losing crit to the said bow, but then you can use like an Ezomite Axe instead if you really cared about crit, and you're still within a pretty good spitting distance of the PDPS of the spine bow. And so, really what it is that Fizz bows are still kind of undertuned compared to just their melee competitors, and why play Fizz when you can have elemental ailments, especially chill, freeze, and shock? Right, then if you add in Secrets of Suffering, you get access to Scorch and Brittle, right? There's a lot of very strong elemental ailments, so why play Fizz when it's already underperforming anyways in that regard? Now, the only time you do play Fizz, and it's why you will see it as the other option as opposed to just playing Tri-Ele, is that you can see Fizz conversion because Hatred is just in a ridiculously broken aura, and other sources of Fizz gain as cold are also really strong, and that way you just really get to, like, dip harder on that damage, as well as the scaling with Headhunter's various auras that it steals. I also need to make a quick shout out to why we see so much Tri-Ele instead of Fizz, and it is just because Trinity support is extremely broken, but I'll do the math for that at a different time. Anyways, I wanted to lay all this out because I realized last video really that I actually really like talking about how archetypes become so strong, what makes them so valuable, what makes them like take up a spot in the meta. And I think through understanding these things, we can start to formulate how to cook better, right? And this has been cool for me personally, just because I've been trying to cook some stuff up, and these analyses are helping me come up better with things that I need to cook on personally speaking, right? Just looking at like, oh yeah, that's right, there is this broken archetype here. And so I'm hoping that by showing you what makes various archetypes strong, you'll start to see what you should be trying to steal from for your other archetypes. I'm going to do this with more archetypes. Don't worry, I'm not only going to do it with just two of the most ridiculous things ever. We're going to go through and talk about the various archetypes and what they're good at, what some of their obvious weaknesses are, etc., to show the value that they can provide, so you can mix and match these. This is how we cook better, y'all. Thank you all for watching, right? If you've made it this far and you really like the video, I hope you like the video if you made it this far anyways. Please like the video, it helps me out a lot. And again, it just lets me know that you want to see more of what I do here, especially if you subscribe to the channel, then you can really see more of what I do here. If you want to see other things that I'm up to, I do stream on Twitch very occasionally. Like really just expect it to be like event timings or like league starts, etc. Working out something for that, but like it's mostly just going to be on event timings, but that link is in the description down below. If you actually want to communicate with me, my Discord is in the description down below, and that's where I'm at. That's where it's very easy to find me and reach me. I'm very active there. You'll be able to see there, and I just like this, I like the flow of ideas and whatnot. Anyways, light it up in the comments with, either your thoughts about how ridiculous bows are, or maybe you hate the fact that I'm out here snitching on yet another broken archetype, or maybe you want me to cover a different archetype because you're curious why people take value in this thing or why people don't take value in this other thing. Whatever it may be, comments let me know what's going on there. Anyways, I've got to get back to blasting because I've got more builds to get ready to play. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.